Hello, everyone. My name is Zach, and this is Science Explosion at Hudson Public Library. All right, so this week's theme is Nails for Breakfast. All right, so you might be wondering what that title is all about. So today we're going to be talking about iron. All right, so do you know what iron is? All right, so you probably know at least a little bit. So iron is a metal, and you probably think of it as just being in metal things around you, even if you think of it being in things like wires or computers or things like that. You probably most of the time just think of it as being in things like steel or just in metal things like these little paper clips that I've got right here. And they certainly are. But did you know that you actually eat iron? And not only do you eat it, you need to eat it. All right, so I'm going to show you one of the ways that you can actually get some iron in your food. So, first of all, iron is so important for you to eat because it does quite a few things in your body, but probably the most important one, you've probably heard people talk about if you're a certain age or if you've donated blood, things like that, about iron being in blood. And iron is super important in blood because it actually helps your blood to do its main job, which is delivering oxygen and nutrients. So it basically helps to create proteins, which are like little building blocks inside of your blood cells, and it helps them to deliver the oxygen. So without iron in your diet, you wouldn't have the ability for your blood cells to transport oxygen. It also helps you to transport oxygen and nutrients to your muscles. And without that, you wouldn't really be able to do much of anything. So iron is really, really important. All right, so if you want to follow along with the experiment today, then it's just a couple simple things you'll need. So you need, first of all, a magnet. Now, the stronger the magnet you can find, the better. So a refrigerator magnet will probably not work. You can definitely give it a try. One of the flat ones, I'm almost sure it's not really going to give you much of anything. But if you have a larger one, like a bar magnet, or especially if you've got one like I've got, and I'm going to hold it up to the camera, but not too close to the camera because I don't want to mess up my computer. If you have a strong magnet, you should never hold it up to electronics. It can really mess it up. All right, so this is a neodymium magnet, and it is quite strong. So the easiest way that I think you can tell how strong a magnet is take something metal like my paperclip here, and you see how close you can get to it before it picks it up. Let's see. There you go. A few inches. So this isn't the strongest magnet. Now, if it was a larger one of these or a stack of these, it could pull a lot more. But I've just got one, and I think this is going to be enough for what we're doing today. Now, a refrigerator magnet, you'd have to get right close to that. So if you didn't know, iron is attracted to magnets, and this is actually what's known as ferromagnetism. So ferro is the Latin name for iron. So ferro or ferrous with an F, not a PH. And there's iron inside of this, and it gets attracted to this magnet. Now, this is kind of outside of the scope of what I'm talking about today, but if you ever get the chance of looking up other kinds of magnetism, there are some really, really weird and really, really interesting. But basically what's happening is that there's an electric current traveling from this magnet into here, and you can tell that it's traveling in through here because not only will this magnet attract this paperclip, but this paperclip, because it's got that current running into it, can also now attract a second paperclip going through it. See that? That is holding on there. Now, it gets weaker as it goes along, so I don't think I could probably get a third paperclip on here. If I had a stronger magnet, I definitely could. If you're doing this with a refrigerator magnet, I really doubt it's going to be strong enough to do that. By the way, these are strong enough that when I have two of them, they're actually hard to get apart. It takes a little bit of effort. All right, so you gotta know, that's the important thing, is that magnets can attract iron and pull it towards it. All right, so that's the first thing you need for this is a magnet. And then you're gonna need some cereal. All right, so if you've got the box, you can look at the cereal and see how much iron it's got in it. So this is Corn Flakes, and they tend to have a lot of iron. Now, if you have a sugary cereal, there's a good chance that it actually has less iron in it. And I'm going to talk in a little bit about why some of these foods do have iron in them. So I think that's a little bit of an interesting thing. But let's get started on this. So you need that, then you need a bowl, and then you need something to crush things with. And I just grabbed a fork. And then you'll also want, optional, a plastic bag, and also optional is a piece of white paper. All right, so we're gonna get a little bit of these cornflakes poured into a bowl, like you're gonna be having them for breakfast. Yeah, that's plenty. Look at that. All right, so that looks good. Now, the first thing I want you to try, take your magnet and then wave it over the top of your cereal. So do you think that the cereal flakes will be attracted to the magnet? And you could even wrestle it through them. Wrestle, 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 wrestle. And then take it back out and see if anything's stuck to it. Now, not just crumbs, because if they're just crumbs, then you should be able to blow on the magnet and they'll come right off. But if they're actually sticking to it, then they should stay. And let's see what we've got here. So, all right, I'm actually a little bit surprised on this one. So to tell you the truth, I didn't think anything was going to stick to the magnet in this first round, but I was actually wrong about that. So my hypothesis was that nothing would stick to the magnet this time, but I actually can see there are a couple crumbs on it. So it's very, very teeny tiny pieces of it. So I'll tell you why I didn't think it would stick the first time. And that is because when you look at these flakes, they're large. And the amount of iron in these is small compared to how big they are. So for this paperclip's pretty big, but there's so much iron in it that all of the parts of this are getting attracted to this magnet because it's basically all just iron. Steel is basically a refined form of iron, by the way. That's a little bit outside of our scope, talking about exactly how you make that. But if you're interested in that, I'd be happy to talk to you about that too. All right, so the reason that I didn't think that it would be able to pick up anything from this is because it's in large chunks. Now, I'm guessing that some small parts of it rubbed off of it, and it's still not very much. Even after brushing up against it with my finger, it's pretty much just not staying on there. All right, so I just want to make a note real quick that in science, being wrong about something isn't necessarily a bad thing. So you might have heard that a lot of science is all about making a hypothesis and then testing it and seeing what your conclusions are. But a thing that I think people don't talk about as much is that it's actually not a bad thing when your hypothesis is wrong. And actually, a big goal of science is to try to prove yourself and other people wrong. So you never set out with the goal to prove your hypothesis right. If you're doing that, that's actually not what you should be doing in science. Instead, you want to try to prove yourself wrong. And if you can't prove yourself wrong, then that is evidence that you're right. So there's a big difference. I just think that's a really good thing to know. All right, so now, I didn't think that would pick up anything, and it picked up just a teeny tiny amount. But now let's try the next step without me making a mess. You're gonna crush up these. Man, I'm making a mess over here. Also, I'm using Corn Flakes, but you can use whatever kind of cereal you have available. If you don't have a cereal at home, then look around and see what other things do have iron on them. If you have things with labels on them, they're going to tell you exactly how much iron. And if it's got a lot, it might be worth trying to get it crushed up and then passing a magnet over it to see how much is on there. Now, if it's something without a label, you can also try that too. And just see what things have iron in them. And don't worry, I'm still going to be talking to you about the type of things that do have iron. Oh my gosh, crushing this. I'm putting my hand over the top of it because I didn't know this, but when I crushed it, it's sending them all over up into the air. All right, crush, 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 crush. You want to get it into really small pieces. The smaller the pieces, the better. This isn't like last week where we made the coating for the fried ice cream where big chunks are okay. This one, you really want to get it very small pieces. Now, if there's some big chunks in there, that's okay too, but your goal is to make a nice fine powder. Now, if you have a blender, you could feel free to use that too, but I always think it's more fun to do it by hand anyway. All right, I'm just trying to get it crushed up nice here for you. All right, I've still got some big chunks in there, but it's mostly small pieces. Let's see if I can turn it so you can see. Yeah, you can see it's all nice and crushed up. All right, so you might be wondering what this piece of paper is for, and that is actually so I can put it over the top of this and then put my magnet on top of that so that the iron doesn't stick directly to the magnet and I have a hard time getting it off. Instead, it's going to be on the other side of the paper. All right, so I'm going to run it over this paper. Paper makes it a bit of a mystery to me how much it's picking up too, which is kind of fun. I'm going to try to run it over here real well so I give it the best chance it's got. Let's see. Alrighty. Not a whole lot. So let me run it over here a little bit more. I'm starting to see some. Whoops. Well, I dropped my magnet inside of there, so all of the iron is just going to stick to that. So I guess I'll just show you on the magnet. That wasn't quite what I was trying to do. Okay. Sometimes your experiments don't go quite how you planned, and that's okay. So I had some crumbs that are sticking to this, so I'm going to have to shake it off to get those off. But okay, I probably lost a little bit by doing that with my hands, but these crumbs now are going to be full of iron. So you see that on my finger right there? I scraped it off of there. And a good way to tell is I can run my magnet back over them and it picks it back up without touching it. Yep, small little pieces. All right, so that got it decently to get some of the iron out. But I think that there's more iron in these than what we're really looking at here. So let's try the third part of our experiment. All right, I'm going to try to scrape some of this off and get it back into there. All right, so now what you're going to do, pour this whole thing into your plastic baggie. I think this is going to be the part that'll work the best. And then what you're going to do, now you could also have tried this one just doing it like that and holding the magnet on the side here and seeing if you can get it to pass over like this and then attract any of it. And that way you can see it fairly well too. And it should attract it to the side. But I think we can do a little bit better than that. So what you're going to do is have it in there and then add some water to it. So the water is going to help it to slosh around and to not have those heavy parts that are weighing down on it. Doesn't this look appetizing? Yum, yum. All right. You want to seal it really well. And you can crush it a little more too. I'm also going to shake it up so it gets mixed in there really well. That's another big reason why you want to make sure that this is sealed really well. Yep, I missed getting part of it the first time. All right, then I'm going to shake this so it gets nice and mixed. So you're making a slurry here. So before I thought, this looks still good enough to eat, but I don't know about this. Now if I mixed it with something like milk, then I don't know, that might be okay. Alrighty, now that we've got this pretty well mixed up, we're going to take our magnet again, and now you're going to run it all along here. And notice what happens when you run it along this time. I'm actually going to crush it up just a little bit better now that it's wet. If you have a blender, you'd be able to get this a lot more fine. So when I say fine, I mean small size. By the way, a good word of the day is fines. That is actually the little tiny pieces of cereal at the bottom of the box or at the bottom of the bowl. The ones where it's just the powdery part. Fines. It's a nice word. All right, I've got that pretty well mixed up. I'm going to hold it by the corner here. And I'm going to pass this magnet all along here. I'm just going to pass it along this part where it's really slushy on the bottom. All right, now I'm going to slowly turn this bag and see if I can get you a good view of it. It's going to be a little difficult here. All right, let's see if I can show you. It's hard to hold it in place for the camera, but if you're following along with this, before you should have seen just little particles the same color as the cereal, but this one is pulling them out a little bit better. And now, let's see if you can see that. It's hard to see, but if you're doing this at home, you'll definitely be able to see it. You can see little black particles. So that's pretty much pure iron that you've been able to get out of there. All right, now let's try something else because I'm trying to do this through the bag. So I'm gonna put my magnet directly into this bag and then slosh it around and then see how much iron I can get just to stick to that magnet. And then I think that'll be a fairly good amount. Because I want you to actually be able to see the iron coming out of this. So it's not just the fact that you know that there's iron in the cereal, because you can read the labels and then you can say, sure, I trust that there's iron, but I think it's so much better to actually be able to show that there is iron in this cereal. So I'm going to shake that up really well, because now that it's in this bag, it should be getting it really nicely onto there from this lovely slurry. Let's see if that's picked anything up. Now, I probably didn't need to shake it that hard because I probably actually knocked some of it off. All right, now let's see if I can find it. If I hold it at the corner, it should sink. Yep, being heavier than the rest of it. All right, now I'm gonna reach in. Oh, that feels weird. That is warmer than I thought that was gonna feel. All right. All right, I'm gonna rinse my hands off real quick. And then I'm gonna show you what I'm talking about here. All right, so the more you use, the more you'll be able to pull off of here. I used a fairly small amount of cereal, but yeah, you gotta be looking pretty close. I can definitely see it. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it very well on the camera. So if you want to try this at home, then feel free. So these are very small pieces of iron, but it's definitely iron there. So I don't know whether you can see that at home, but I can definitely see specks of iron on here. It should look dark, a metallic black. And you move it around, and if you can also pull it off and then hold it out, and yep, it's getting pulled right back to it. So it's kind of hard to show this one. I thought it would show up just a little bit better on the video here, but that is okay. All right, so we showed that there's iron in this cereal by pulling it actually out of that. But what other types of foods is iron in? So there's lots of different foods that iron is in, which is good because we absolutely need it. So leafy green vegetables are probably one of the best sources of it. There are tons and tons of iron in those. You can also get iron from meats that you eat. Sweet potatoes are a really good source. Some other root vegetables have a good amount of iron in them. Now, the funny thing about this is, also cereal grains have a fair amount of it. So that's things that you use to make bread. Now, if it's whole wheat, it's going to have a lot better. So that means that it's the whole part of that seed, which is ground up to make the flour. So that's what they mean when they talk about whole wheat. It's the whole part of it. So bread is made from ground up little seeds, seeds from grass. By the way, every single, most breads that we eat are made from grass. There is no way around that. So wheat is a type of grass, rye is a type of grass, oats are a type of grass, and also even our Iowa favorite corn is a type of grass. It's just been selectively bred for thousands of years to get really, really, really big kernels. But it's still a grass. Now, I say most because there are some exceptions. You can make bread out of potatoes and things like that. But when you're talking about most types of bread, it's made from grass. All right, so those have a good amount of iron in them. But these cornflakes, they're made from corn, but the iron that comes in this is mostly actually not from that plant itself. So most cereals, you'll notice that they say that they're fortified with iron. That actually means that iron has been added to them. So there's actually quite a few nutrients that get added specifically into breakfast cereals because they're actually not a very nutritious food. The way that people talk about them, you would think they were. Now, I will say that comes with a little bit of a grain of salt. The things that go into them are not very nutritious. And by that, I mean they don't actually have a lot of nutrients in them. They definitely have calories and things like that, but they don't have a ton of vitamins and minerals, one of which is iron. So they end up actually adding them back into them because this is a food people eat so much that doesn't have a whole lot of nutrients in it, which is actually why I had to borrow some cereal because I don't have any at home. It's not something I eat very regularly. But if you do, that is okay because they do add these nutrients back into them. So they add things like iron, they add things like vitamin B12 is a big one. But it is a source of iron. But if you're wanting to get iron from other things, there are lots of other good sources of that. But I'd say leafy greens are definitely the best one you can get. And you can definitely still get some of those in the grocery store right now. They're not nearly as common as they are in the summer where they're growing a lot more places. Oh, your dog next door. Alrighty. Oh yeah, so now that I'm rubbing the magnet against my finger, let's see if you can see it against that a little bit better. So you can see on my middle finger right there, there's some iron. I'm gonna rub it against this white paper and hopefully the contrast comes off a little bit better there. Yeah, so you can kind of see it there against the white. All right, so what did we learn today? We talked about how there is iron in all sorts of foods that we eat, and even more than that, it is something that we absolutely need to eat. Now, there's actually a specific condition of you not having enough iron. And if you've got this, then you cannot donate blood. So it's called anemia. So when you're anemic, that means that you don't have enough iron in your blood and they won't actually let you donate blood. It's actually fairly common. A lot of people don't get enough iron in their diets. All right, so my name is Zach. This has been Science Explosion. And remember, you can always feel free to give us a call at the library, email us, stop in, send us a letter, whatever, with any questions. If you have suggestions of the types of things you want me to talk about, feel free to send those to me. I am always happy to answer questions about this or any other type of science question. Even if your question sounds silly, I think sometimes the silly questions are the best ones to ask. I always say one of my favorite questions is, why is the sky blue? It's got such a cool answer for it, but all sorts of questions like that. I think be curious and ask all sorts of those questions. All right, so my name is Zach. This is Science Explosion from Hudson Public Library. Thank you so much for joining me today, and until next time, bye.